The following program is a SUTV student production. The views expressed are not necessarily those of Salisbury University, the University System of Maryland, its regents, administration, officers, employees, or representatives.
Coming up on tonight's broadcast, with the election yesterday, Riley Shoebridge brings us voter reactions from local student and candidate perspectives on the importance of exercising your right to vote. And the disease that's been talked about across the entire country starts discussions across campus. Tonight, Brooke Reese will identify how students can take caution, especially those studying abroad. And we have an interview with the copy editor for The Flyer, Justin McClure, about his latest article concerning internet harassment. You're watching SUTV Evening News. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to SUTV Evening News for this Wednesday, November 5th, 2014. I'm Taylor Rogers. Tonight we conclude with our election coverage that we've brought to you all semester long. As of yesterday morning, voters visited polls across Maryland and the rest of the country to place their votes for state and district races. Here's SUTV News' Riley Shoebridge with a look into the importance of voting.
We are here today, November 4th, 2014, talking to community members and Salisbury University students about the elections.
In local elections, a lot is decided right at home, which is sometimes much more important, and you have much more control locally than you might have in a national election or a state election. Local officials deal with, of course, local issues that can more seriously impact the voter here in Salisbury or Wycomico County. Salisbury students don't realize what impact they have in this local community, and whatever they decide, whether it's in a local election or a state election, is eventually going to impact them, whether it's for new buildings in the school, more aid for the school, whether it's capital expenses or not. It makes a big difference.
It's important because if people are going to complain about things that they don't like, they have to exercise their right to vote so that they can make a difference. And in local elections is more important because in the local elections, one vote counts a lot because not a lot of people show up in these elections, and especially when it's not the general election. But one single vote really can make a difference. So.
I think it's very important because this is your chance to make a big change. A lot of people complain about things at the top aren't going very well. It's important for us to start at the bottom with our state delegates and also with their local leaders to vote the people that we want and to actually make the change we want to see.
I think this is like a really critical age for people to be politically active. Like, it's an age where politicians don't tend to pay as much attention just because they think students don't care, but it actually plays like a really big role in students' futures and like paying up loans and what types of jobs are available and stuff like that.
Because people have bled and died for the privilege. Most people around the world don't have that option. That's why it's important.
For SUTV News, I'm Riley Shoebridge.
Thanks, Riley, and we will have our political correspondents Eli Modlin and Colin Sweeten with more election coverage later in the show. With September and October being fire safety months, the Director of Campus Sustainability and Environmental Safety, Wayne Shelton, emailed SU some suggestions for handling and avoiding fire situations. He recommended that to install and check smoke detectors on every floor level, keep fire extinguishers in your home, and set up and practice fire escape plans. You can also, on campus, know escape routes for buildings. Pull stations for fire alarms are next to all stairwells and exits, and do not use elevators during an evacuation or drill. For those with wheelchair accessibility, proceed to the nearest stairwell and clear the doorway and walkway, and a real emergency firefighters will escape. And for more information, visit the SU Police website. And also happening this month is the beginning of Toys for Tots at the Purdue School of Business. As of today, there are drop-off locations for all donations at Mr. Arthur's Cafe and the Dean's office. Organizations are encouraged to collect and give to those less fortunate. You can make donations anytime up to December 12th, so make sure to contribute to this noble cause. And now let's turn it over to Jamie Potter to give us a look in what's hitting flyer newsstands this week. Jamie?
This is Jamie Potter with another edition of This Week in the Flyer. On the front page, we have Shannon Wiley's article titled SU Professors Share Opinions About Popular Site, Rate My Professor. Wiley gives the opposing but not so surprising views of students and teachers. To read some of the statements members of the Salisbury University community have made about the site, check out this article. Be sure to also check out Wiley's editorial on page 5 titled Let Jigsaw Show You the Path to Enlightenment. Wiley reflects on a series of films she has always been a fan of and gives readers some insight on the possible moral lessons to be gained from these gruesome movies. In the Go Life section, Daniel Shields continues to tell us about his experience in the United States as a Scottish exchange student. In Shields' column, Through the Eyes of a Scotsman, he writes about the differences between how Halloween is celebrated in the U.S. and back in his home country. Remember to also check out the student health column for Megan Mahidy's Health Food of the Week. Now here's an exclusive interview with one of this week's flyer writers.
No student on Salisbury is going to care about an online research project that some random research team did, but to me, I wanted to localize that, so I conducted a Survey Monkey. I put together four questions. The problem is social media. It's occurring on social media, and I guess now it's upon professionals or just people in general to kind of take it upon themselves and figure out, well, how can they change that aspect of themselves on social media, and just if they can be censored. So people should just be conscientious of what they're saying, think twice. We're in college now, and employers look at what we say, and it's just a part of moral conductivity that we need to uphold as far as just being people and interacting with each other. It's very important just to be mindful of other people's emotions and what they're feeling.
Thanks, Justin. Now back to you, Taylor.
Thanks, Jamie. To see the extent of these stories, make sure to pick up a copy. Well, with cold season making its way across the country, we need to take caution before contacting certain diseases. SUTV addressed the tuberculosis case that came out last month, but now the health services turns their head to the Ebola outbreak. Here's SUTV News correspondent Brooke Reese with more on this story.
This week, Salisbury University Student Health Services sent out a campus-wide email addressing how one can prepare if they plan to travel abroad this winter. The increasingly prevalent Ebola virus has been the center of news lately, but some students are still left in the dark about the disease.
Northwestern Africa, Sierra Leone, and New Guinea, and it's pretty bad there, but I'm not really worried about it spreading here. We're a first world country. We have the technology to, help people who are infected by it, so I think the freak out about it is kind of ridiculous. Yeah.
The Center of Disease Control has released these symptoms as potential warning signs of the illness. The only difference between a stomach virus or the common cold is bleeding. The CDC states that as of today, only 3 cases have been confirmed in the U.S.
And I don't really know that much about Ebola at all, but I know people are terrified about it, and enough to where they're buying hazmat suits, which is insane to me, that you would have to buy a hazmat suit for something that's not even really prevalent in our area right now. But I know it's a really big deal to some people, but not really to me because it's not relevant in my life right now.
Students traveling abroad this winter should get the proper vaccinations, but focus on diseases like malaria and measles, according to the Health Services email. The United States and Africa are the only places reported with the virus at this time, except for 1 case in Madrid, Spain. This is Brooke Reese for SUTV Evening News.
Thanks, Brooke. This past weekend, the NABS Center hosted an emancipation celebration at the historic Charles H. Carshall Center. The celebration was in honor of the 150th anniversary of freeing the slaves in Maryland. The Emancipation Proclamation did not apply to Union states. It applied to only the state's rebels because Maryland wasn't free until state legislature passed a new constitution. So the Maryland slaves weren't freed until 2 years after emancipation. As Veterans Day comes closer, downtown Salisbury has 2 events open for the rest of the community to enjoy. Both help and thanks support our local veterans. This Saturday, you can participate in the 5K walk and run starting at 8:30 a.m. and then the dog walk at 10:30, benefiting the Warrior Canine Connection. For those interested, meet in parking lot 1 at Market Street and Circle Avenue and register online for both events. And this Saturday, hundreds of students will help to clean up the surrounding community during the 7th annual I Love Salisbury event. Students will gather in Red Square at 10:30 a.m. to clean up supplies that they will use to pick up trash for public, private, and nonprofit properties. If you wish to have help for your own property, you can fill out an online request form on the SGA page of the Salisbury website. For all other information on this event, call the SGA office at 410-548-4757. And now for a recap in this week's SU Sports, here's SUTV Sports correspondent Amanda Newman.
Thanks, Taylor. It's a busy day today here at the Bury with 3 CAC semifinal games. After going 12-1-5 in the regular season, the number 10 men's soccer team will be hosting the CAC semifinals today against number 5 Christopher Newport. The two teams played against each other back on October 23rd, where they had a 1-1 tie and double overtime. This should be a very interesting matchup today. The winner in today's game will go on to play 2nd-seeded Penn State Harrisburg or 6th-seeded St. Mary's College of Maryland in the CAC Championship. Women's soccer, who finished 10-5-3, are going to be playing against number 6 Mary Washington today in the CAC semifinals. Last time they played each other, the Gulls won 2-0. Sophomore Jenny Gavigan and junior Victoria Luck scored in the previous game. The winner of this game will play against either Christopher Newport or 4th-seeded Frostburg State University in the CAC Championship. The number 1 field hockey team is hosting York College in the CAC semifinals beginning at 6 p.m. The Seagulls and the Spartans played against each other back on October 18th, where the Seagulls had a 6-0 victory. If Salisbury wins today, they will be hosting the CAC Championship game against either 2nd-seeded Mary Washington or 3rd-seeded Christopher Newport. Football had a very heartbreaking loss in the final 3 seconds to Empire 8 opponent Alfred State 23-21. Junior Jerome Johnson led the offense with 68 yards and 2 touchdowns. Sophomore Shane Marvel led the defense with 9 tackles, and junior James Bryant had 8 tackles and a forced fumble. The Seagulls will be hosting their final home game of the season Saturday at 12 p.m. against Brockport State. They will also be honoring their seniors during halftime. Volleyball beat Marymount University 3-1 in the CAC semifinal, losing their first match 28-26 and then coming back to win the last 3 matches 25-21, 25-23, and 25-22. Sophomore Katie Stouffer led the team with 19 kills for the night. Senior Michelle Meehan carried the defense with 29 digs. Salisbury will be taking on 2nd-seeded Southern Virginia University Thursday night at 7 p.m. in another CAC semifinal game. Women's swim got their season started with a victory 114.5 to 90.5, and the men lost 120-85 to York College. Their second match is currently underway against Washington College. Good luck, Seagulls, and make all of our Seagulls proud with all of your CAC championships. And now back to Taylor.
Thanks for that, Amanda. And make sure to check out suseagulls.com for this weekend's CAC Championship games. All right, well, we're back, and I'm going to give you an update on the sports game for earlier soccer games. Both men's and women's lost today. Women's lost 2-1 to University Mary Washington, and men lost to Christopher Newport University. But now let's take a look back in time to the important events that took place in history this week. Speaking of sports, on this day in 1994, boxing oldest heavyweight championship George Foreman defeated the 26-year-old Michael Moorer at the age of 45. Foreman gave up his title after refusing to fight the number 1 contender of 1995 and retired later with a lifetime record of 76-5. Foreman is also widely known for his promotion of the products like George Foreman Grill. With the close of the elections yesterday, 154 years ago this week, our 16th president of America, Abraham Lincoln, was elected president. Lincoln became first Republican to win the presidency and received only 40% of the popular vote, and beating 3 other candidates. Lincoln began getting national recognition for his debates against Stephen Douglas for the Illinois Senate seat in 1858. His election to presidency sparked the Confederate succession from the northern states and later leading to the American Civil War. Sadly, his leadership would end after his assassination, but Lincoln would be forever recognized for his noble character and by ending slavery. And seeing that we're approaching Veterans Day, in 1964, the university paid homage to Lieutenant Thomas B. Fallon. Fallon, who was a former student and, quote, star athlete, was killed in action during the Vietnam War. The memorial service was held in Naval Chapel of the Philadelphia Naval Yard. And on this day, 54 years ago, Dr. Jefferson Davis Blackwell passed away at his home in Lutherville, Maryland. Blackwell began his time with Maryland State's Teachers College and was the first president of its time. He turned an institution suffering from the Great Depression into a college for the entire peninsula. Blackwell started the economics and sociology departments, as well as helped build the first men's dormitory, which is now the Wicomico Hall. And it looks like fall is in full force and looks to be a cold one this weekend. Here's Shannon Sweeney with your weather outlook.
Thanks, Taylor. It's been a really nice start to the week here in Salisbury. We saw temperatures in the 70s, which is actually above average for this time of year. I hope you got a chance to get out there and enjoy the weather while it lasts, because things are going to change. Taking a look here at the current radar, not a whole lot going on right now in Salisbury, but we can see this band of rain off to the west. Now, this is associated with the cold front that's going to be bringing us some wet weather tomorrow. Taking a look at the current conditions across Delmarva right now, Salisbury, overcast skies, winds out of the west 3 to 7 miles per hour. Salisbury right now 57 degrees, Wallops Island also 57, Easton 59, as well as Dover 59, Rehoboth at 61. Now, this is the NOAA Weather Prediction Center outlook for today. You can see the cold front situated right off to our west. This is going to be the big rainmaker for tomorrow. Breaking it down a little bit further for you tonight, 9 p.m. to midnight, we'll see those clouds start rolling in as the front closes in on Salisbury. Temperatures in the mid-50s, winds light out of the west-southwest 3 to 7 miles per hour. We could see showers as early as 3 a.m. Now, this is the jet stream map. It's 250 millibars, which is actually 34,000 feet from Earth's surface. Now, why am I showing you this? There's a whole lot going on here, but I want to draw your attention to this band of winds here. This is the jet stream. It's dipping down into a trough. Now, this is important because it conditions the atmosphere for a low pressure center to form on the surface. With that being said, this is the NOAA Weather Prediction Center outlook for tomorrow. You can see that low I was talking about at the surface forming over Illinois and Indiana. Now, this is going to be bringing us some more wet weather this weekend. For tomorrow, 7 a.m., we're going to see that rain start to roll in, 57 degrees, winds light out of the south, 6 miles per hour. 11 a.m. is really when we're going to start to see that rain pick up, 66 degrees. 3 p.m. is going to be real wet and windy out there, winds out of the south-southwest, 14 to 18 miles per hour. As the front moves off the coast, 7 p.m., we'll still see a lingering shower, 61 degrees. Now, these is the rainfall totals from 7 p.m. tonight to 7 p.m. tomorrow. You can see us here. We're going to get right about 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch of rain over that 24-hour period. We really won't see flooding as a main concern with this. Taking a look at the 7-day forecast for you tomorrow, some showers, 67 degrees, winds out of the southwest, 16 miles per hour. Really windy on Friday, but mostly sunny skies, high of 58 degrees. Saturday, nice, sunny and clear, 53. A little chilly in the morning, 36 degrees. Next chance of rain is going to be on Sunday, 56 degrees as that front moves through. And the cool Arctic air returns next week for you. Thanks. Back to you.
Thanks, Shannon. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to have complete coverage of this historic election with SUTV's Eli Modlin and Colin Sweeten. We'll be right back. And thanks for joining us back here on SUTV Evening News. I'm now joined here with our political correspondents, Eli Modlin and Colin Sweeten. It was definitely a huge night, historic night last night. Can you guys sort of tell us about sort of the historic moments of last night's election?
Well, Taylor, I guess you have to start off with the governor's race here in Maryland. You know, it's a blue state. We've seen a Republican governor before. Governor Bob Ehrlich was elected back in '06, but this was a big one. Anthony Brown was the heir apparent. He's the lieutenant governor, popular in Prince George's County, a big county, and he was up in the polls early. He was up with money, and he just didn't pull it through. You know.
No, I absolutely agree with O'Malley's you know, sort of decreasing approval ratings. Certainly didn't help him there, and yeah, I think that sort of the political environment around Maryland is sort of shifting as we've seen around the nation. But what was certainly the most important thing in this is the idea of voter turnout. You know, many see, you know, they thought that Hogan needed a big turnout or a you know, something, you know, involving voter turnout in order to make this race possible for him to win. And by the numbers, 100,000 fewer voters turned out in 2010, and it turned out that Hogan won by 150,000 votes. So certainly this disparity in numbers sort of nullifies the the argument that Hogan needed some sort of turnout in order to win. So that was certainly a big shift in the voting.
All right, now let's move on to the Wacomico County Executives race with Rick Pollitt and Bob Culver. Can you sort of tell us a little bit about that? Go ahead, Eli.
I mean, again, you have a little bit of a shocker here. The Eastern Shore is not like the rest of Maryland. It does tend to lean a bit redder, but you had Rick Pollitt, a two-term incumbent, the inaugural holder of this office, been in public office here on the shore since 1976, and again, he didn't do it. He faced a tough race his last go-around in 2010, so I don't think this was as huge as a surprise, but again, two-term incumbent. He's been in that seat for 8 years. He's the first and only person to hold that office, and he lost to a Wacomico County Councilman, Bob Culver, businessman. So that was another one that's going to have a big impact here on Wacomico County.
When we look at Culver being business-oriented and focusing more on jobs and certainly taxes, you can see the businessman versus the perceived lifetime politician, and I think that's what really resonated with people when they went to the voting booth.
Yeah, I think so. And Pollitt's camp, Mr. Pollitt himself actually said he did not think that this loss was any indication of how voters felt towards him, his leadership, or his time as county executive. He just thought this was a part of the national Republican wave. We tried to get Mr. Culver on today, but he said all he could think about was going fishing today. So it's been a long few months for him, and he was ready to get out on the river.
He's ready to take a break.
Yeah.
So I want to move on to the seat in Del Mar with Carl Anderton Jr. and Norm Conway. Norm Conway is obviously somebody very local here to SU. Tell us sort of about that kind of race and how that's going to impact here for students.
Well, I think you two would agree that when you talk about the biggest takeaways for SU, at least from last night, this one is going to have some impact on the school. Norm Conway has been in there since 1987. Prior to going to Annapolis, he was in the Salisbury City Council for a number of years. He became the Salisbury City Council president. He's a SU grad. He was the head of the Appropriations Committee. He's the guy that sends the money whichever way it goes in the state. And that's an invaluable resource to have an alumnus be in that position for SU. You know, his portrait is in the basement or is in the first floor of TTC. He's at every groundbreaking and every major event here on campus. That's a big blow, and it's a surprising win. The guy's been there since 1987, and you have Carl Anderton Jr. from the former mayor of Del Mar, the current mayor, but will be former mayor when he takes that seat. And that was a big blow.
No, absolutely. I think that when you look at the Republican pickup here, and then it's sort of a microcosm of what happened across the nation. And the Senate, it's switching hands. I think this is a great one to look at. 52 to 47, difference in voting. This wave of red, as everyone's been talking about. We can look at this race, and you have Conway, who had been, as Eli said, in office for a long time and a lot of power. I think it's going to be interesting to see what Anderton does with this new position. He's going to have to work a lot hard to get to where Conway was.
And just going off of that a little bit, Anderton has ties to the school as well. His wife got 2 different bachelors from SU. I just don't see how he will. Norm was just so powerful. No matter how hard he tries, I don't know that he will be able to do. Even if he wants to, I don't know if he'll be able to do for SU what Norm Conway was able to do, if ever.
Okay.
That was a big blow to the school, I think.
Okay. So now when we turn over to the Wacomico Senate seat, we have Mike McDermott and we have Senator Mathias. What happened here? Because this is definitely something that McDermott won the House seat, but now when it comes to the Senate seat, what's happening here?
Well, like you mentioned, Mike McDermott took Jim Mathias's House seat when Mathias went to the Senate in 2011. I think that this was a shock. I mean, we were kind of hesitant about even coming on saying who won this race because the numbers were still so close so late. The Mathias camp was hesitant about giving us a statement. I think, as Colin talked about, that national wave is hitting the Eastern Shore as well. And I think voters were just really looking for some change. And even though Mike McDermott's in the political realm already, it may have been a change in pace for that particular seat. I'm not surprised that Mathias pulled it out. I just thought he would have won by a little bit more. He's very popular, mayor of OC for some years, member of that city council for years. I think that goes to, you know, Matthias, of course, won, but I think how close it was telling in itself.
Yeah, sure, and when you look at the amount of money and time spent on this election, each candidate really wanted it. And I think that when people see these ads, they hear about them, they see the signs off of 50 and 13. That's really what got everyone thinking. And I think that this is a more accurate debate of where people are in their political, you know, beliefs and what they believe needs to be done in the community. And so I think that, you know, with everyone's points getting out and the candidates really getting their points out, that's what made this race tight and a good one.
All right. Well, thank you guys both for being here and covering that election. It was very important. But when we come back, we're going to have an interview with Matt James, excuse me. So when we come back, right back. All right, well, we're back, and I'm now joined with Matt James. Matt James, can you sort of tell us, you're a current student, business major as well, who gained a seat on the Ocean City Council at only the age of 21. So can you sort of tell us about that?
Just worked really hard for it, and I knocked on a lot of doors and met as many people as possible in Ocean City. And I think the voters saw how hard I worked and how much I wanted the seat.
So what sort of made your decision to run for council?
You know, I come from a fairly politically active family. My dad ran for House of Delegates in 2006 and against Norm Conway, who you guys were talking about earlier. And then in 2010, he ran against Senator Matthias for that Senate seat. So I think at a young age, I got involved with politics and I enjoyed it. So I decided to throw my hat in the ring now.
Yep. Speaking of a young age, you're 21 and you are now on the Ocean City Council. Sort of tell, what's the kind of feeling, you know, being so young and on the Ocean City Council?
It was very exciting last night when we got the news. Just very excited and very happy. I didn't expect to get the amount of votes that I did. I was the top vote getter. There were 4 seats available, and out of the 4 seats, I was the highest recipient.
Okay. And how is it like being not only a business major here at SU, but now, you know, doing the work for Ocean City Council? You know, how is it managing both of those kind of work? Because I know it's definitely got to be stressful.
Well, I'll know after my first council meeting, but it will be tough, and not quite sure how I'm going to change or alter my school schedule, but I'll make it all work together and be able to take care of everything I need to.
All right, well, Matt, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank all of you for joining us here tonight for SUTV Evening News. From all of us here at SUTV News, good night.